And insurance is very complex, very confusing to people who aren't involved in it, especially not every day. So for me, really just being able to help people, I take great pleasure in that. Obviously you're picking up a new account, or maybe it's an existing account where you have a problem. But to be able to show the client that you've put enough time and energy into their needs to help them out of a situation, whether it's lowering their premium, improving their coverage, or you're basically just letting them know that you are there to help them and you will communicate, you'll respond timely to their emails and phone calls. I take a lot of pride in that.
Hello, and welcome to the Palm Beach County Living Podcast. Here we talk about all the amazing people, events, businesses, and everything that makes Palm Beach County, Florida, such a fantastic place to live. As a local real estate agent, my clients always ask me about the best restaurants, events, jobs, and people here. So I developed this show to help you get a feel for all of the best that the Palm Beaches has to offer. With that being said, let's start the show right now.
Hi, Chad. How are you?
Great, Melanie. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Now, I know that you are a commercial insurance specialist in Palm Beach County with a focus on real estate. So there's a lot of words in there. Can you tell us a little bit, what exactly does that mean? It's a little bit confusing, I think, probably to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself a generalist first and foremost. I mean, I'm not specifically stuck in one niche, but over my 25-year career, I've definitely gravitated into the real estate sector, which really includes anything that's, property driven. Mostly what I do are community associations, which condominium association, homeowner association, townhomes, you name it. And that goes for all different types of coverage, whether it's property insurance, liability, directors and officers liability, umbrellas, crime coverage, workers' comp. There literally can be 7, 8, 9 policies, or at least coverage types that you need to secure for the associations. And it just happened over time, making contacts, networking, referrals. You get to know a few property managers, they refer you business. And, once you establish that connection, if you will, that you start getting more business and the referrals start to come in. So it just so happened that, just through that whole networking and referral process, that the majority of the business I write now and handle are those types of community associations. Still do, whether it's shopping centers, office buildings, anything of that nature, pretty much anything real estate, that is by far the heaviest niche that I'm involved in right now.
Fascinating. So what exactly led you to go into insurance?
Try to make a long story short, but our neighbor who we grew up with across the street for many, many years, he and my dad were really good friends. He was a State Farm agent at the time. And, as we got older, I mean, we were all very friendly. He was he's a funny guy. But he was a State Farm agent. And when I went off to college, he kept saying, hey, come work for me when you get out of college. We'll stay in touch. You'll be successful. And I'd never given thought to it. I was a psychology major. I knew I wanted to get a degree, but really didn't see myself pursuing a career in psychology, medicine, pursuing a doctorate, anything of that nature. But he and I kept in touch, and he had since left State Farm and opened up the first branch office of what used to be Advanced Insurance Underwriters, which is a large kind of, privately owned South Florida based insurance firm. And he opened the first branch office, and I graduated college '98 and immediately went to work for him. And yeah, I mean, that's basically just how my insurance career took off. It was one of those that, I think a lot of people unfortunately fall into insurance. They don't need a college degree. I mean, you can get a risk management degree and actually study it. But I think there are a lot of people who just fall into it, maybe a second, third career. But it worked out. I loved it. It takes time to grow. You have to stay the course, not give up when you're not making any money, the first couple of years. But it worked out. I mean, he left, kind of went and did his own thing. I stayed. And then in 2016, was acquired by my current firm, which is who we're with now, and it's a large national brokerage firm now. But that's basically how my insurance career took off.
Very, very interesting. So, being in Florida, obviously, insurance is very important, and you're writing for um, commercial policies. I know that sometimes it can be difficult residential to get residential insurance. There's not too many brokers or anything to use to get insurance. Do you find those challenges as well in doing commercial, or is it a bigger vat of people to choose from?
Definitely, no, it's really as big a challenge as the residential side right now. I mean, I don't know if I can say more or less, but it's more on the property side of things.
Okay.
So if you're dealing with, commercial auto and general liability, you're still having issues because the market is terrible all the way around. Specifically in Florida. I mean,
Hmm.
other states have issues, but from a property standpoint, all the insurance companies are struggling to either, find capacity to be able to write new business, or those who are still writing business are charging higher rates.
Hmm.
They're tightening the kind of coverage that they can even offer. So they're
Hmm.
limiting coverage, excluding coverage. They're raising deductibles. Um, the I guess ability to even get qualified now, the carrier guidelines have tightened considerably. Where I mean, some companies, whether it's personal, commercial, the home has to have been built, property has to have been built 2010 or newer, 2015 and newer. I mean, it's gotten that strict with some of these companies. Or if it is an older property, even if it's only 20 years old, they require that you have newer roofs.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with a really just a flux of issues.
Mhm.
Reinsurance costs have skyrocketed. So really on either side of the fence, commercial versus personal, getting property insurance is very, very difficult right now for a lot of different reasons.
And I feel like it's not just here in Palm Beach County. I feel like, at least on the news, they talk about multiple states, California, Texas, all the ones that, are more easier to have, severe weather, if you will, are having, some fun challenges, if you will. I mean, do you see like the government like stepping in to help these states, or do you think it will resolve on its own and it'll get better? I mean, do you have an opinion about anything like that?
Yeah, I know the state, our governor, legislators are doing what they can to help. My opinion is that they were more reactive than they were proactive. I mean, I'm not an expert. I'm not on the actuarial side of things. I can't predict the future, but this is something that everyone clearly saw coming a number of years ago. It seems like maybe it just took a little bit too long to really start to take action, but I think the action that they have taken will help. It's just a matter of how much is it going to help and when is that help going to come. The quotes that we kept hearing when these special legislative sessions took place last year in 2022 was that these new bills were going to stabilize the market,
Hmm.
state improve the market. So the question is still, what does that mean? Are rates eventually going to peak, plateau, and they won't increase anymore? Or are they actually going to start decreasing again? And if they do decrease, to what level will that be? Will it get back to, when rates were, I wouldn't say at an all time low, but at least over the last, 10 to 15 years, rates were very, very low around 2017. Maybe it's 2018, but 4 years ago, 5 years ago, the market was soft. I don't know that the rates are ever going to go back to that.
Hmm.
But I do think at least what our state is doing to combat these issues, because we're in a full blown insurance crisis. It's no longer just a hard market. Rates are increasing. We were seeing rates increase anywhere from 20 to 30% over the last year or two, to now we're seeing 75 and 100%. I mean, we're seeing some that are 200 and 300%. Like it's absurd.
Wow.
But and that's definitely more on the commercial side.
Hmm.
I don't think residential is not seeing it that bad. But again, it's just limited carrier capacity, and it's these larger properties that are getting hit the hardest because carriers don't have enough capacity to put out enough limits, high enough limits to give them the appropriate coverage. But at least back to your question, it's not going to fix itself. We're just the state is littered with fraud, increased litigation. Obviously the natural disasters that are unavoidable. It's climate change. I mean, believe
Mhm.
it if you want. Not everybody does, but the hurricanes, the storms, the flooding,
Mhm.
it all culminates in just a major insurance problem right now. There's not one specific reason you can point to. But for what it's worth, just back to the litigation standpoint, the last statistic I heard is that Florida represents 75% of all lawsuits filed against homeowners insurance companies. I don't know if that correlates strictly to commercial, but at least on the residential side, that was the last report I had heard. So one state at 1 out of 50 represents 75% of all lawsuits filed against insurance companies.
I hear.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What types of commercial insurance products have you worked with in the past?
most of what I had already mentioned, workers' comp, commercial auto, general liability, property insurance, directors and officers liability, crime insurance, which crime is not gunfire, robbery, burglary. It's basically protecting money, protecting the financial assets
Mhm.
of either business owners, these community associations. Um, yeah, there's even now a legal defense gap policy, which has become pretty popular over the last several years. That basically covers. It's supposed to be pretty ironclad, but if any insurer denies a claim for any reason, then that legal defense gap policy, which is very cheap, will come into play and provide an unlimited defense.
Wow.
Although it doesn't provide indemnity, it's not going to actually pay a covered loss.
Mhm.
Um, it will at least provide an unlimited defense, but there are other products out there that you pay a little bit more premium, and that also will provide indemnity payout as well.
I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Are there do you have extensive experience in a certain sector?
As far as the legal defense gap, or you're just saying in
Just
general?
in your insurance business and your commercial insurance business, do you focus on property insurance? Do you focus mainly on auto? I know that you do it all, but is there one that maybe you have the most experience in?
Not really. I mean, they all mostly tie in together. It really depends on what product line. I mean, what business type that you're insuring, and that kind of dictates what type of coverage, what type of policy they need. But the majority still need property insurance, general liability insurance. If they have employees, workers' comp insurance. If they have an auto schedule, auto. I mean, I have pretty vast experience in all of them. If I had to really point to one, I would say general liability, because
Mhm.
every business needs general liability. Not every business needs property.
Mm.
There's some that maybe they just don't have any assets, don't, or they opt not to insure them. They don't want to
Mhm.
write, have, provide contents coverage, or they don't want to cover a building, that sort of thing. But pretty much everybody needs liability insurance. If they're not required to have it, then
Mhm.
they know they should have
Is there one myth about insurance that you'd like to debunk?
it. Probably that insurance companies don't pay claims. I
Okay.
know that's you hear it all the time. People
Mhm.
are like, "Hey, what's the point of insurance? They're not going to pay anyway."
Mhm.
And I understand that, and there definitely are cases where carriers try to wiggle their way out of paying a claim. And of course, at that point, if it's legitimate, um, if you have a legitimate gripe against them, and you file a bad faith claim against them, but I think as long as the language in the policy is clearly defined, and the issue that we're dealing with, the claim scenario we're dealing with, conforms to the language in the policy, carriers don't have a legal right to deny coverage. The
Mm.
people that have the biggest gripes are the ones that really don't have a legitimate claim,
Mm.
or maybe they have a claim, but they feel the value of the claim is much higher than what the insurance company is willing to acknowledge. So we can point fingers at who's really responsible, but I think when all is said and done, insurance companies do pay out. Um, yes, I think their first uh, step, the first reaction is to figure, how can we not pay this claim? But as long as it meets the definition of a covered loss, they're legally required to cover that claim. And
I
you take,
didn't.
just to touch
Yeah.
on that a little bit, you see a lot of these roof claims that have taken place where people are getting, public adjusters and roofing contractors and whatnot out there to basically say that they need the roof replaced because, they have damage from some storm.
Hmm.
In a lot of those cases, they had no damage whatsoever,
Hmm.
but we're still able to get that claim paid. So I know it's not really for me to say, but I don't know that that really constitutes a legitimate claim. Hence the reason why the insurance company ends up getting sued.
Yeah. Hmm. Very fascinating. Where can my listeners find more information about you or how to hire you?
I do have a LinkedIn page, even though I'm not very active on it. It's kind of shameful that I more or less just have a profile, who I am, very brief, bio. But that's really just not into social media as I probably should be. But LinkedIn, of course, I have a direct line at the office, cell phone number, email address I can give out
Okay.
now and give out later. But
Yeah, obviously everyone knows your first name is Chad, last name is Romano. But
Romano.
yeah, if you want to give an email or a phone number, whatever you're most
Yeah,
comfortable
so I'll do direct office line is 561-459-2852.
with. Okay.
And email address is C Romano, Romano, at risk-strategies.com.
Awesome. All right. That's great. All right. Is there anything I didn't ask you about your business that you would like to share?
Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Yeah.
I think we've covered. I mean, I if I can add anything at all, I mean, I can tell you at least what I get out of insurance is helping people.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm a people person. I like connecting with people. I like educating them on insurance. I find that just in communicating with current or new prospective clients, for example, they don't feel they're really getting the service and the care that they deserve from their agent. They don't know anything about insurance. They want help. They want hand holding. And insurance is very complex, very confusing to people who aren't involved in it, especially not every day. So for me, really just being able to help people, I take great pleasure in that. Obviously you're picking up a new account, or maybe it's an existing account where you have a problem. But to be able to show the client that you've put enough time and energy into their needs to help them out of a situation, whether it's lowering their premium, improving their coverage, or you're basically just letting them know that you are there to help them and you will communicate, you'll respond timely to their emails and phone calls. I take a lot of pride in that. And especially with the claims process, you can't just send a client off to fend for themselves in a claim. I mean, sometimes it works, but there have been a lot of examples, just situations where insurance company will deny a claim. Again, going back to this whole situation, but you kind of have to help them through that. Don't just take a denial for what it is. Help them review the language in the policy. Do they have a reason to deny it? Is there any way that we can, find another avenue to get it paid? But it's basically just trying to be creative, being helpful, communicating, and really just going to bat for them.
I I I can speak from experience that having a good agent is very important. I know from my perspective that a lot of the legalese in the documents written can be very confusing. Do you find that's pretty common when you're dealing with your clients, that just really grasping the policy itself?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even, I mean, look, I am an agent, and I'm not
Mhm.
going to sit here and say that I review my policy. If I have something I'm looking for, okay, I'll go look at it, but I'm not going to sit there and just read through every single, page, every policy form, because a lot of policies can be 50 to 150 pages, depending on how many forms, endorsements, exclusions, and whatnot are in there. But it is confusing. I mean, I've
Mhm.
been reviewing so many of the same policy forms for 25 years, and yet it's still, sometimes you need a refresher. You
Mhm.
have a question that a client's asking you, and you're like, wow, I probably should know the answer, and I don't want to give you the wrong answer, so let me double check. But there is a lot to know, and there are a lot of forms that, although they look and sound the same, they can be modified ever so slightly. That just that change in a word or a sentence can really change the whole outcome of a claim. So anyway, very confusing, and yes, they all need to be reviewed.
um, just thinking, I feel like Florida is developing more and more. Like there's new communities being built all the time. I mean, obviously, you're writing those insurance paperwork and policies. I mean, do you find that Florida is still flourishing when it comes to development?
I think so. I mean, I just look around us.
Mhm,
We live at Lake Worth Road, 441, which Lake Worth
mhm,
Road is probably one of the two or three busiest roads. And maybe it's not so much the traffic, but when you look at the traffic lights, it's hard. It's busy. But just the development in and around our community,
mhm,
it's we sit there and think how much more can we develop? How much more do we need to develop?
mhm.
Let's leave some green space, but it's definitely not it's not going to stay that way forever. So I think that development is continuing to just flourish. And you
Yeah,
talk about a poor economy or a bad economy, all that stuff you hear. I'm not seeing it. People still seem like they're buying and shopping, and so yeah.
agreed. I think so too. People are definitely still buying homes, even though it may say like in the media that homes aren't selling, but we're still seeing movement for sure.
Absolutely.
So moving from insurance to something fun like football, tell me a little bit about your early life and your football experience.
Well, our interest was sports. Just my brothers and I, we just grew up around sports. Our parents always had us involved. They were awesome because they never pushed us. We didn't have those types of parents, but they just kept us involved, supported us. And my dad played football, and my mom swam, and they were athletes themselves. So I think just right off the bat, they kind of put that athletic mindset in us, and we were all athletic to varying degrees.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and we all ended up playing football. I mean, we didn't, except for Eric, who he played tackle football at like a youth level, but the rest of us didn't play tackle until we got to high school. But although each of us adopted another sport to go with football, all four of us played football, and we're moderately successful at it. All had opportunities to go to college to play.
Hmm.
I guess, just being a little bit self-deprecating. I don't know that I was as good as what my scholarship granted, but I had an amazing coach, high school coach Sam Budnick. He actually coached our dad, which is really cool. So all of us got to play for him, and he was a major supporter of his players, just a major booster of you know getting behind his kids, getting them, recognition. Of course, this is all before social media and before you could post your highlights and all this stuff. But because he was so well respected, and
Hmm.
coaches all over the country, they come to Florida. They want to talk to Sam Budnick, although it's a small private school. He put out some pretty talented players over his career. Anyway, he I'm not going to say single handedly because a lot of people had it involved. My teammates, him, my parents, my brothers, friends, you name it. But he definitely was a big part of promoting me and getting me the recognition to get out there. And of course, my dad with his videos and his putting highlight films together for all of us, which were always so cool. Um, but yeah, that's where the interest in football came from.
That's amazing. Now, you played for Kansas, correct?
Kansas State.
Kansas State.
Kansas State.
Okay. Okay. Got to be specific about
Yeah.
that. Make sure you get that right for sure. So, what do you miss about Canvas? About
Yeah.
Kansas?
Yeah. I love the Midwest. I love
Hmm.
my time there. I thought the people there were so great. And even, at this point, like politics, put politics aside, it doesn't matter. When I was in college, I didn't give any thought to politics. So, but the people there were always so genuine, so friendly. I felt it from the very first day. And even now, just when we go back, we don't get back as often as I'd like, but every so many years we'll go back for a game, get together, really have four old teammates, roommates that, we'll always try to connect when I'm back out there. But even, them, their families, their friends, all the people around, you still feel I don't know, a genuineness. And it's not to say you don't get that other places, but going to a football game in Manhattan, Kansas, and being around the people there is different than going to a football game in Miami, if you will. But it's just, I don't know, people are friendly, and I like the quietness. It's a big, small town. I wouldn't say, 60, 70, maybe even 80,000 people there now. It's a college town, but it's a beautiful little town that's actually grown quite a bit. It's in the Flint Hills, kind of surrounded by nothing. I mean, you leave the town limits, you're literally just seeing prairie, farmland. But it's cool. And if you don't mind being landlocked, there's lakes and still fun stuff to do, but it's just a cool place to be. I mean, I really like getting back there, and yeah.
So earlier I talked to your brother, and he asked that I ask you a question about your experience with Craig James when he called you out for your haircut. So I was wondering if you could possibly tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was I don't. The haircut was regretful, but it definitely has allowed me to kind of this 15 minutes of fame, 5 minutes of fame. The legend lives on, probably because of Eric, my other brothers too. But yeah, so I was a punter and
Okay.
long snapper. He and I were roommates on road trips. So I would bring my clippers. I would just cut my own hair. I would bring my clippers. So we made a tradition that Friday night before each game, he would give me this terrible haircut. And it was literally just shaving the sides, the back,
Mhm.
and just the hair on top was still growing. Anyways, yeah, it's I'll send you the clip because I think you have to see it. It really is great. But yeah, so it was during the Copper Bowl in Arizona in 1993, and I had just come off the field after a punt, and Craig James, the former SMU NFL running back turned ESPN announcer, was they were filming me run off the field, and he's kind of dogging me a little bit. I wasn't punting well. Take my helmet off, and he's basically says, "Who cut that guy's hair?" And you hear everybody in the booths just start cracking up. They go back to the game. They come back. It's like, wait a second. We need to go back. So for maybe, I don't know what it was, 30, 45 seconds, they're just filming me on the sidelines, walking back and forth. He's drawing on my head on the screen. And then, anyway, that was that. So a lot of people, they saw that. And then the next day, my mom and I were on the flight heading wherever we were going next. And lo and behold, he was sitting in the seat right in front of us. And so she's like, "I'm going to say something." I'm like, "No, come on, Mom." And she just said, "Hey, excuse me, Mr. James, our son." And anyway, she filled him in. We had a good laugh. He signed my hat. And, but to this day, it's cool. I mean, it's just cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people know about it now, and it's kind of funny to show them. But everybody gets a good laugh at my expense. But
That's
it's a pretty cool
awesome.
moment.
That's a great
It
story.
is on YouTube, so you might have to.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out. That's pretty awesome. So, obviously, you were in Kansas for a while, but you maintain your home here in Palm Beach County. What do you like most about Palm Beach County?
I guess being outdoors. It's hot right now. It's hot in summertime, but I think just being outdoors here is great. We try to get outside as much as we can. We like to get to the beach. We bought ourselves a cheap used boat about a year and a half
Mhm.
ago. Just thought it'd be something fun to do and get our boys and friends out with us. So we like to get out on the boat. I think just having access to the beach, to the ocean, to the intracoastal, the proximity to the West Coast,
Mhm.
proximity to the Keys. I mean,
Mhm.
South Florida really has a lot to offer.
Mhm.
Um, it's definitely busy. It's grown exponentially over my time in Florida, but I just think having access to all of that, access to the beaches and and the boating and whatnot is pretty cool.
It is. I
And
do.
if I could be more specific, Peanut Island, especially since we got the boat. I mean, we love Peanut Island, and I
Yeah,
really do think, especially if you're an outdoorsy kind of person, Peanut Island, I think, is possibly the greatest thing about Palm Beach County.
that's
It's
so
a lot
funny.
of fun.
Yeah, I remember visiting there, when I was younger. I didn't realize it was still as popular now as it was, you know, when I was in my 20s.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we're into the party scene, but it's just, especially if it's a nice day, just go
Yeah.
cruise, dock the boat, hang out in the water. They've got lagoons, you can snorkel, they've got
Yeah.
pavilions and barbecues, and it's lots of people, and I think it's really cool just seeing as many people uh, that go there, just everybody having a good time, and you know, I'm sure it can get a little rowdy at times, but we've yet to really see anything uh, crazy like that. I mean, most people are just music and maybe some beverages and camp. They have a campground there that we've camped at a
Mhm.
couple times, which is really cool. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. I remember it really does have a lot to offer, and it's so great that you still go to it, and obviously I'm your family's a part of it now, and it just continues to remain a nice spot to visit, and it's local, which is great. You don't have to travel very far. It's very easy to get to by boat. Um, so that's great. I I don't want to say completely forgot about Peanut Island, but it has been a
Yeah.
while since I visited, but it was always a great time. Is there any other things like Peanut Island that you enjoy doing with your family in Palm Beach County?
I mean, we're trying to golf a little bit.
Mhm.
Have our kids, our boys who are 16 and 18, um, trying to get them into golf a little bit. So go on golf, driving range. I mean, we don't fish. It's kind
Mm.
of funny. We like the water, but we don't really fish. I mean, our boys fish a little bit. Go out to eat, try to hit cool restaurants.
Yeah.
I know it's probably pretty boring and lame to say that, but I mean, there's not, we're homebodies too, so it's like, yeah, we like to have those weekends where we're out and take the boat out, but
Mhm.
we love our home. We're on a lake, so we like being outside, go down on the dock, but yeah, I mean, we used to go to the movies when the kids were younger, but they don't really want to do that anymore. And pretty expensive anyway, and you can stream everything. So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, not big shoppers.
Yeah. I think Florida is great because there are a lot of restaurants and especially like outside seating, so you can still get, I mean, you don't always want to sit outside because it's so hot, but does your family and you have a favorite restaurant you like to visit?
Well, we order from Jimmy Brooklyn's a lot, which is
Okay.
a pizza place out in Wellington. So
Mhm.
love that. But normally that's just kind of picking up. We end up at Limburgers a lot. So if
Okay.
you've never been to Limburgers, it's one of those places that it's just it's great. It's consistent. It's
Mhm.
not expensive, but it's a great family place, great burger place. 50 burgers that you
Yeah.
can select from, and but it's just one of those places that a lot of time, hey, where do you want to eat? I don't know, and then it's like, how about Limburg?
Yeah.
So and they have 3 locations, so it's we usually hit the one in Wellington,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, we're not, we don't really do fine dining, so it's more just go find something local and laid back, but yeah, I'd say Limburger is probably one of the main spots.
Yeah. I remember eating there when I was much younger, and because I would enjoy their burgers and all that fun stuff. It was always fun going there. But it's good to know that there's some out in Wellington. I didn't realize there was any out west there. So that's a great little tidbit.
Yep.
Um, so now I get to ask you some fun questions about yourself and getting to know you a little bit better in the sense of if there was one famous person or public figure that you would like to meet, Who and why?
I know this is going to be a pretty shallow answer, but if you ask my wife, she would
Uh-huh.
know the answer. I've been a big Pearl Jam fan my entire
Okay.
life since they came out.
Okay.
So meeting Eddie Vedder would be cool. I don't know what I would say to him. I've kind of thought about that. I would probably leave him alone,
Mhm,
but
mhm,
but he would be it. I mean, I know that's not very deep, but I've just always been fascinated by him and his
mhm,
story and just who he is and what he does. And I don't know if at this point he's considered one of the top, you know, lyricists in history. Rolling Stone puts out their top 100
mhm.
list. I mean, I find his songwriting incredible.
Yes.
Um, I'm sure a lot of viewers might disagree with me, but anyway, yeah, I've just always been fascinated by him, by their music. They're really the music that I could listen to just over and over and over and not get tired of this song. But I would love to meet him.
It's funny that you said that because your brother Eric, not to this question, but also remarked that he was a large Pearl Jam fan, and it made me reminisce of the first concert I went to when I saw them in South Beach. Have you gone anywhere fun and saw them in concert, or do you still see them in concert locally?
I see them every time they come here locally,
Okay.
but it's been a while since the last time they came. The coolest thing we did, we flew to Boston because my wife is from Boston area. Her family still lives up there. We were up there in 2016 and saw Pearl Jam at Fenway Park,
Oh,
which
that's amazing.
that was an amazing experience. I wasn't sure, old stadium and the configuration, how they're going to do it. And even though we were in call it the grandstands, they actually set their stage up out in like left center field. But it
That's
was
cool.
just so cool. And I'm thinking, like, how do you surpass this? You're seeing your favorite band in one of the coolest, I mean, probably the coolest stadium. Fenway's amazing.
Yeah.
But that was cool. That was cool. I haven't seen them as much as some people who are the true. Maybe they've seen
Mhm,
them 300 times or what have you. I mean, I've
mhm,
probably seen them less than 10 times, but I'm waiting for them to come back. We did see his solo tour.
mhm.
Played at the Broward Center of the Performing Arts in 2012. That was different, acoustic.
Mhm.
Played his ukulele,
Yeah.
ukulele
Yeah.
songs. But even then, I'm thinking it doesn't matter. You see Eddie Vedder performing solo, it's still amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
Eric
um,
and Page have put us to shame though because they've actually been traveling more to see him or Pearl Jam or him with his other band, and yeah. So we need to catch up to them.
yeah, that's that I'm very fond of them as well. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
I've thought about this a lot just over time. The whole flying, if I could fly, that would be cool. If I could be invisible, it would be cool. But I think time travel, I don't know that that's really a superpower, but if I could travel back in time,
Mhm,
there's reasons for it. I mean, I've gotten kind of into a little bit more into history as I've gotten older. I like watching documentaries and whatnot. It would just be cool to go back in various eras in time. I can even tell you when cavemen, dinosaurs, the Wild West, the 50s. I just think it would all be cool to really be immersed in how people lived and operated and survived and communicated and all that. But I also think a little bit deeper. I would love to go back to when my parents were younger. I mean, they're still alive, but to go back to when they were little, what was it like? For them, being around them when they were kids, teenagers. I mean, I think they were 26 when I was born. So, my memories outside of watching, videos and whatnot, really they were in their 30s already, as far back as I can remember. But being able to go back and kind of see what they were like, what their, youth was like. Even my grandparents, same
mm,
thing. They've all since passed away, and a few of them passed. Probably when I was a teenager. So, and then you're a teenager. You don't want to hang out with your grandparents. But I think just to be able to go back in time, being older and a little wiser, what were they like,
Hmm.
children, teenagers, just to kind of be immersed in that, what their lives were like. Yeah,
That's very cool. Um, if you could instantly master any skill or talent, what would it be and why?
probably photography.
Ooh.
You know, I take a lot of pictures. I mean, we have a nice camera,
Hmm.
but maybe I don't feel like we still don't know how to use it. We think we're taking good pictures and go back and look at them and like, oh my god, it's blurry or the lighting's bad or the framing's bad. But I like capturing moments, like especially, I mean, mainly with my family. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
scenery, but just we vacations that we do and whatnot. I just wish our photos would come out better. So I think photography. If I could be better at that, yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Chad. I mean, I've learned a lot just talking to you this past half hour or so. And, a lot of times you don't think about insurance until you really need it. So it's important, obviously, to make sure that you have a great agent and that you know the knowledge of everything that is important to your policy and what's going to best protect you or your clients. And I know that they can reach you at Romano at riskstrategy.com, if that's correct.
Just make sure
Just
you have
when,
the hyphen in there.
okay, at
Hyphen
Romano at risk
strategies.com.
strategy.com. Got to get that right. Thank you so much for your time, Chad. I really appreciate, I know you're so busy, but I've learned a lot and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me
Well,
today.
thank you very much, Melanie. Thanks for doing this. Greatly appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right, you too. Thanks
Okay,
a lot.
bye.
Bye.